Now, of all the gods and goddesses that lived in Asgard, Balder was the best, the brightest, the most loved, the kindest, the most sincere. Everyone loved Balder, or so it seemed. His hair was bright white. His skin seemed to shine all on its own. He never had an unkind word to say to anyone. He was the light in the life of the gods and goddesses of Asgard. But it happened that Balder became troubled. He began to have terrible dreams. They haunted him even when he was awake. It was like a shadow had placed itself in his heart. He didn't understand what the dreams meant, and so he told the other gods and goddesses about them. And they discussed at length the meaning of Balder's dreams. And they all agreed that it meant death. But they couldn't bear the thought of Balder dying. And so they all decided that something must be done to protect him, to save him. Frigg, his mother. "That's easy," she said. "All things in creation bow down before me. I am the queen of the gods. I will make everything in creation swear an oath that it will not harm Balder." And she did. She went out to all the 9 worlds. Fire swore an oath not to harm Balder. Water swore an oath. Iron and every kind of metal swore an oath. The air swore an oath. The earth swore an oath. All of the animals that lived on the surface of the earth swore. All of the creatures that swam in the seas swore. All of the birds that flew in the sky swore. When Frigg was satisfied that she had an oath from everything, she returned home. She told everyone, "Balder is safe. There is nothing in all of creation that can harm him now." One of the gods decided to test if this was true. So he picked up a small stone and he threw it at Balder, and it bounced harmlessly off of him. Balder looked and said, "I didn't even feel it. It was as if you didn't even throw it." So someone else thought that they would test too, and they picked up a larger stone and hurled that stone at Balder, and again he said, "I didn't even feel it. It was as if you never threw it." And so it became a game. The gods and goddesses began to pick up stones and then pieces of wood and then pieces of metal, and it turned soon into them unsheathing their weapons, shooting arrows and spears and bringing out their swords. But nothing they did to Balder could harm him. Now there was one who didn't take part in this game, Loki. If Balder was all that was bright and shining in Asgard, Loki was all that was dark and evil. He hated the attention that Balder got. What's so great? It's not his doing, it's Frigg's doing that he can't be harmed. And then he began to think of some way that he might change the way things were happening. He watched the gods playing their game and throwing their spears and swinging their swords, and Balder remaining unharmed all the while, and a plan formed in his mind. He left where the gods were playing, went out to a place where no one would see, and he called his magic about him, and he changed his form into an old woman, a bent and crippled old woman that no one would look twice at. And then slowly he found his way to Frigg's hall. He found Frigg at home. She had no idea of the deception. "Oh, old mother, please come in and sit by the fire. You look exhausted. Can I get you some refreshment? You must be hungry. You must be tired. You look like you've come a long way." The old woman nodded. "Indeed I have, a very long way, and I am very tired. I will sit down. Now tell me, young woman, what were those people doing back there? They were stoning some poor man to death. What's that all about?" "Oh," Frigg said, "don't worry. It's my son Balder. The gods are playing a game. You see, I have taken an oath from everything in creation that it will not harm my son. And so they're playing at testing to see if all of the things indeed won't harm him." "Well, what's the poor young man done? He's so handsome and so bright. Why are they stoning him? The poor thing must be dead by now." "No, no, no," said Frigg. "Have no fear on his behalf. No harm will come to him. I have taken an oath from all things in creation." "Really?" said the old woman. "Everything?" "Yes," said Frigg. "Fire and earth and air and water, all of the creatures on the ground, all of the creatures in the sea, all of the creatures in the air." "Everything?" said the old woman. "Yes," said Frigg. "Everything." "Even a little pinch of salt? You took an oath from a pinch of salt?" "Yes," said Frigg. "Are you certain? Everything?" "Well," said Frigg, "there is that little bunch of mistletoe that grows just on the western side of Valhalla. I didn't bother taking an oath from that. It's so small and so young and so weak. How could it possibly harm my son? I didn't bother to take an oath from that." Loki was pleased. He stood up. "Well, I've taken enough of your time. I'll be on my way." And Frigg wished the old woman a good journey. When Loki was safely away from Frigg's hall, he returned to his own shape and made his way to Valhalla. And then he made his way to the western side of Valhalla. And then he found the great oak tree, and growing on that great oak tree, the mistletoe. It was indeed a small and young and weak and sickly looking sort of thing, but that didn't trouble Loki. He pulled all of the plant down off of the oak and began to make his way back to the hall where the gods were playing with Balder. And as he went, he stripped the leaves and the berries from the mistletoe, and he found the longest, straightest piece, and he began to sharpen the point so that it made a fine spear. Well, the other gods were having such fun with their game, they hadn't even noticed that Loki was gone. He stood for a few moments and watched them. And then he noticed, off on the side, Balder's brother, blind Hod. He wasn't taking part in the games. He was standing off by himself, as he usually was. Loki walked up to him. Hod heard the footsteps. "That must be Loki," he said. "Indeed, good man, it is. Why are you here all by yourself and not taking part in the games with the others?" "I can't see," said Hod. "But that shouldn't stop you," said Loki. "Why shouldn't you join in the festivities?" I don't have a weapon," said Hod. "Well," said Loki, "I have something here. It's not much of a weapon. It's just a little piece of mistletoe, and I'm sure Balder wouldn't even notice. But why shouldn't you be taking part in the games too? Here, I'll stand behind you. I'll put the mistletoe in your hand, and together I'll guide your hand, and you can throw the dart at your brother." And so Hod went along with Loki's persuasion. He took the spear of mistletoe in his hand, and he allowed Loki to raise his arm up, and he allowed Loki to shoot the dart. His aim was true. It hit Balder square in the chest and passed right through his body. Before the gods and goddesses knew what was happening, Balder fell down, dead, killed by this tiny little spear of mistletoe.